the first to say Happy 4th of July, almost. I know 4th of July is tomorrow, but we're marking that great holiday today on Village in Motion, and I am just proud and happy to be your host, Diane Gatsis Havinga, on a very special Village in Motion, because we're going to be talking about our independence through music. And we're going to do that with my very special guests, Gray Parks. And Gray, as many of you know, is our Green Spring Troubadour. And he's also one of the hosts here on Channel 6, and he does cameras, and he's on Resident Council. And we were talking about a month or two ago about the 4th of July and came up with a plan to hopefully not only entertain you through music and song, but I think to educate people on how some of the music that we are so familiar with kind of came about.
I think so.
I
hope so.
Well, I'm sure so. So we're going to start from the very beginning, which is our Revolutionary War.
And in the Revolutionary War, of course, we had Yankee Doodle.
And which is one of my favorite songs.
You like that one?
We just kind of heard it at the beginning too. So, but you got a little twist.
Well, yeah, I do, because Yankee Doodle starts back in 1755, before the Revolutionary War. And here's a stanza for that. Brother Ephraim sold his cow and bought him a commission. Then he went to Canada, fight for the nation. Well, the British made fun of the colonists and used Yankee Doodle as a marching song as well as a dance tune. And the term doodle is thought to be derived from a German word meaning fool or simpleton. And macaroni was a wig that the British wore, and it was a curly wig, and it was, along with the feather in the cap, it was an extreme fashion, and it was a contemporary slang for foppishness. So the British are responsible for our most popular verse of Yankee Doodle, which is, Yankee Doodle went to town riding on a pony, stuck a feather in his cap and called it macaroni.
And before you go on, I just have to tell you, when I was little, I mean, one of my earliest memories was one of my aunts bouncing me and every child you can imagine from the earliest, as early as you could bounce a baby on your knee. And she used to bounce us up and down and sing that song. And I'm proud to say I carried on that tradition with my kids. So I'm just in love. I've always been in love with this song, Gray.
Good. Well, in March of '75, the British tarred and feathered a colonist named Tom Ditson in Billerica, Massachusetts. And they added a stanza to their marching song, which, Yankee Doodle came to town for to buy a firelock. We will tar and feather him, and so we will John Hancock. Well, on the colonist side, there was a 15-stanza version attributed to Edward Bangs from Harvard College, who in '75 or '76 wrote a ballad. And here's one stanza in verse. And I haven't, or the chorus, and I haven't been adding the choruses, but I'll do it for this one. And there was Captain Washington and gentle folks about him. They say he's grown so tarnal proud, he will not ride without him. Yankee Doodle, keep it up, Yankee Doodle dandy. Mind the music and the step, and with the girls be handy. Well, they kept adding verses, and after the war, in 1788, Massachusetts ratified the Constitution, and they added this stanza to it. So, the convention did in Boston meet, the State House could not hold them. Then they went to Federal Street, and there the truth was told. Well, you know, we've been singing Yankee Doodle since that time, and it's always been part of our culture. In World War II,
do the British still sing it? Or
is
that just an American? I mean, I've always thought it was just really an American.
As far as I know, it's still, but you know, they could be. It wouldn't surprise me.
Probably to put us down more than.
Well, I don't know that they'd put us down these days.
No, I don't think so.
Maybe in their own homes back in the den, they're singing songs about us. Who knows? Well, in World War II, we had a song that came out called Yankee Doodle Dandy. As a matter of fact, it was in a movie about George M. Cohan. And Yankee Doodle Dandy was we've been singing it ever since then. You know, it was one of those songs that sort of caught on. And it goes like, I'm a Yankee Doodle dandy, Yankee Doodle do or die. Real live nephew of my Uncle Sam, born on the 4th of July. I got a Yankee Doodle sweetheart, she's my Yankee Doodle joy. Yankee Doodle came to London just to ride the ponies. I am that Yankee Doodle boy. Well, that's about all for the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, we got to move on. Yeah, that was so long ago, some 200 and some years ago. We don't need to worry about that war anymore.
We had a second Revolutionary War with Britain, if you recall, in 1812.
I wasn't born then, Grace.
Well, but we had a Village in Motion
Right.
last year about this, because the biggest song that came out of that period was the Star Spangled Banner. And as I said, we did the Village in Motion on it, and the history of the Star Spangled Banner and how it was written and so forth. But there was another popular song that came out of the Battle of the War of 1812, and that was called the 8th of January. And that's because that was the date that the Battle of New Orleans was fought. And this fiddle tune existed, and they played it at dances and so forth and so on. But in 1936, Jimmy Driftwood put words to it, and he did that so that his students, he was a history teacher, and so his students could remember something about the war. Well, in 1959, I believe it was, Johnny Horton took some of the words from that, added a stanza or added a chorus, and he did the Battle of New Orleans, which has been a very popular song ever since. And I sing it a lot around the campus here whenever I get a chance. As a matter of fact, over at Garden Ridge, I do it about every 2 months. But anyway, the 8th of January that was written by Jimmy Driftwood had a lot of different verses in it, and it had, I think, about 10 or 12 verses, as I recall, and Johnny Horton only used a few. So I thought I would do some of the other verses that Jimmy Driftwood did, and I'll have to use a couple of the stanzas to have a little continuity, but other than that, they'll be different. In 1814, we took a little trip along with Colonel Jackson down the mighty Mississippi. Took a little bacon and we took a little beans, and we met the bloody British in the town of New Orleans. Well, I seen Marse Jackson come walking down the street, talking to a pirate by the name of Gene Lafitte. He gave Gene a drink that he brung from Tennessee. The pirate said he'd help us drive the British to the sea. Old Hickory said we could take 'em by surprise if we didn't fire a musket till we looked 'em in the eyes. We held our fire till we see their faces well. They opened up their squirrel guns and really gave 'em well. They lost their pants and their pretty shiny coats. Their tails were all showing like a bunch of billy goats. They ran down the river with their tongues hanging out. They said they got a licking which with their hair was rolled down. Well, we marched back to town in our dirty ragged pants, danced all night with the pretty girls from France. We couldn't understand them, but they had the sweetest charms. We understood them better when we got them in our arms. Well, we'll march back home, but we'll never be content till we make old Hickory the people's president. Every time we think about the bacon and the beans, we'll think about the fun we had down in New Orleans.
I can honestly say I haven't heard those two verses. Didn't the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band also release that, I think, in the 60s, Susan, right?
It's been out, yes.
That's Gray's daughter in the back. So yeah, so that's where I really became.
1959, Johnny Horton.
Right, but in the 60s, the folk rock group Nitty Gritty Dirt Band released it, and it became one of.
There were others, yeah.
Right, very popular song and one of my all-time favorites. So that was 1812, and then we're going to jump up to the Alamo and the Mexican War.
We have the slogan, we've had the slogan for a year, remember the Alamo. And the Battle of the Alamo was part of the Texas Revolution that began on October the 2nd, 1835, when the colonists in the Mexican province of Texas rebelled against the increasingly centralist Mexican government. And the Battle of the Alamo occurred between February the 23rd and March the 6th. and in that period, while that battle was going on, March the 2nd, Texas declared its independence from Mexico. Well, the war, this Revolutionary War in Texas, ended on April the 21st when Sam Houston defeated the Mexican president and general. He had both out of Santa Anna in the Battle of San Jacinto, and they made him prisoner. And to release him, he agreed to send all of his troops back to Mexico. So that sort of ended that part. But Mexico refused to recognize the Republic of Texas, and intermittent conflicts between the two nations occurred until the United States annexed Texas as the 28th state in 1845, and that led directly to the Mexican-American War. And if you recall, we sent armies into Mexico and so forth. But here's the Ballad of the Alamo, and the total ballad is about 12 verses, I think it is. And you know, when it comes back in or next year in February and March, maybe I can do the whole ballad, but I'll only do about 5 verses just to give you a flavor of the Ballad of the Alamo. In the southern part of Texas, in the town of San Antonio, there's a fortress all in ruins, and the weeds have overgrown. You may look in vain for crosses, and you'll never see a one. But sometimes between the setting and the rising of the sun, you can hear a ghostly bugle as the men go marching by. You can hear them as they answer to that roll call in the sky. Colonel Travis, Davy Crockett, and 180 more, Captain Dickinson, Jim Bowie, present and accounted for. Back in 1836, Houston said to Travis, get some volunteers and go fortify the Alamo. Well, the men came from Texas and from old Tennessee, and they joined up with Travis just to fight for the right to be free. 185 holding back 5,000. 5 days, 6 days, 8 days, 10. Travis held and held again. Then he sent for replacements for his wounded and his lame. But the troops, they were coming, never came. Twice he charged in blue recall on the fatal third time. Santa Anna breached the wall, and he killed them one and all. Now the bugles are silent, and there's rust on each sword, and the small band of soldiers lie asleep in the arms of the Lord.
That was a pretty bloody battle, wasn't it?
It was, and Santa Anna killed everyone, and he had declared as the president about a month before that these revolutionaries in Texas were nothing more than pirates, and you kill pirates, you don't take prisoners. So that was
his justification.
That's right. So all of them, and then there were more than 180. Well, the numbers ranged from 180 to about 250 or something like that. So they don't really know how many were there. And he actually took about 6 or 7 prisoners and then executed them. So none of them survived. Well, the Civil War, you know, Jane did such a wonderful job last week on the songs of the Civil War. I decided not to sing any for this one, but there's one thing that came out, or one song that came out of the Civil War that I think we should remember, and that's Taps. And Taps was written, the music of it was written by General Butterfield, and he had written the notes down, and he called his bugler in. He had been wounded in the battle, and he had lost about 600 men. He didn't like the Lights Out tune, and so this was to replace the last bugle call of the night. You know, the bugles were used for all kinds of messages in most of the wars because they could be heard above the din of the battle. But anyway, he wrote these notes down, and his bugler took them, and he would play the song, and General Butterfield would change it a little bit and here on. So finally he arrived at the song or the tune that he really wanted, and the bugler blew taps that night. And of course they heard it throughout the area, more brigades than just his. The next day all these buglers came and wanted the music that he had done for taps the night before.
And before you go on, it is the July 3rd, 4th, and 5th is the anniversary of Gettysburg. So
it is, that's true.
It's during this period of time that we also remember Gettysburg, and it's 152, I think, years since that battle.
1863.
Right,
yeah.
So give or take.
Well, taps was recognized in 1874 as an official bugle call of the Army. In 1891, they started using it for funeral ceremonies. So that's about all I want to say about the Civil War.
I think you said enough. I mean that in a good sense.
Well, we go to another war though that it's not really well remembered. It's 1898 we fought the war with the Spanish, and in that with Cuba and the Philippines were annexed as part of that war, and so during that war, Teddy Roosevelt and his Rough Riders were what we mostly remember from that particular war, and they had a tune, or they played a tune that was called Hot Time in the Old Town Tonight. And apparently their band played it so frequently that the Cubans and the Spanish thought it was our national anthem. So I thought I'd do a couple of tunes from that. Where you hear that the preaching does begin, bend down low for to drive away your sin. And when you get religion, you want to shout and sing. There'll be a hot time in the old town tonight. When you hear them bells go ding-a-ling-ling, all join round and sweetly you must sing. When the verse am through and the chorus all join in, there'll be a hot time in the old town tonight. You can see why they might have liked that tune. That was a pretty
it
bouncy
sounds
tune.
to me, not that I've ever met Teddy Roosevelt, but I bet you he just loved that song.
I'll bet he did too. Well, World War I and World War II, I've done so many songs for those, and I've done some medleys for them in the past, and I thought I would just do a couple of a medley of a few tunes from World War I and World War II. Over there, send the word over there, that the Yanks are coming, the drums rum-tumming everywhere. So prepare, say a prayer, send the word to beware. We'll be over, we're coming over, and we won't be back till it's over there. And then with the three services, let's do one. This is the Army, Mr. Jones. No private rooms or telephones. You had your breakfast in bed before, but you won't have it there anymore. And for the Navy, praise the Lord. Pass the ammunition. Praise the Lord. Pass the ammunition. Praise the Lord. Pass the ammunition, and we'll all stay free. And finally, the Air Force. Coming in on a wing and a prayer. Coming in on a wing and a prayer. Though there's one motor gone, we will still carry on. Coming in on a wing and a prayer. Well, that takes us up to Korea. And I thought you were going to...
Which hasn't even ended. I know. So Gray was asking me to sing this song, And I said, Gray, I sing in the shower, in my car, and around the house, and the cat always meows when she hears me. So I kind of declined.
I see. All right, well.
I guess I need to have a few more years on before I can.
Well, maybe that's it. But you know, there were several or a lot of songs done about Korea, and most of them were by country artists, but you don't remember any of them except for one, and that was one that was sung by Gene Shepard and Ferlin Husky about 2 months. It was released about 2 months before the end of Korea, and it was called Dear John. And of course, Dear John is a term of a letter that's written by a sweetheart or a wife to the soldier overseas, telling him that, sorry, I don't love you any longer. I'm going to marry somebody else, or I'm going with somebody else, or whatever it was. But this song became very popular. And maybe it was because it was the end of the war. I'm not sure, but it became very popular. And it still is. I mean, we still hear Dear John sung today, and it's been sung by other artists, more than just Gene Shepard and Ferlin Husky, but they had the popular one at that time. So this is their version. I was overseas in battle when the postman came to me, and he handed me a letter. I was as happy as I could be, for the fighting was all over and the battle had been won. Then I opened up the letter and it started, Dear John, Dear John, oh how I hate to ride. This should have been Diane's part. Dear John, I must let you know tonight that my love for you has died away like grass upon the lawn, and tonight I wed another, dear John. Will you please send back my picture? My husband wants it now. And when I tell you who I'm wedding, you won't care, dear, anyhow. Now the ceremony has started, and I'll wed your brother Don. Will you wish us happiness forever, dear John? Dear John, oh how I hate to ride. Dear John, I must let you know tonight that my love for you has died away like grass upon the lawn, and tonight I wed another, dear John. Now, aren't you sorry you didn't decide
well,
to
but
sing?
in my defense, I see I've never written a Dear John letter, so there you go. And today I hear they don't even bother with that. They go on Facebook and say, hey, by the way, Dear John.
I guess I did get one back when I was a 19-year-old after my first year at college, and the girl I dated at college didn't want to have anything to do with the boy that had joined the Army. She wanted to keep on in college. So I guess I did get it. That was a Dear John letter. I'd never thought of it before. Well, Vietnam, you know, there were hundreds of songs about Vietnam, mostly protest songs, and many of them that were vile and virile. They weren't very nice. But there were some patriotic songs, and the one I like best is the Ballad of the Green Beret. It was written by a soldier, Barry Sadler, who had been wounded in Vietnam, and he was recuperating from his wounds at the time. It was #1 on the charts, and I will sing just a couple of stanzas of that. How are we doing on time?
About 5 minutes, so I think we're right on time.
Fighting soldiers from the sky, fearless men who jump and die, men who mean just what they say, the brave men of the Green Beret, silver wings upon their chest. These are men, America's best. 100 men will test today, with only 3 win the Green Beret.
And I think what was interesting about that song was it, as you mentioned, it became #1 amid all the other protest songs that were sung and made hits during that time. So it's kind of an ironic thing that a very patriotic song still kind of jumped up there on the charts.
It did, yeah. Well, now we come to the last 25 years, Afghanistan and Iraq. And of course, we had the war with Saddam Hussein when he invaded Kuwait and we drove him out. And then the Islamic extremists detonated a bomb under the Twin Towers in the parking garage. And they did a lot of damage, but it didn't take them down. Then we had September 2001 when they hijacked some passenger planes and flew them into the Twin Towers and the Pentagon and did a lot of damage, killed almost 4,000 people. And so as a response to that, we went into Afghanistan, and we also went into Iraq. I'd say the one song that came out of this period, or that's still along this period, that has sort of sustained us really, is God Bless the USA. And it was written by Lee Greenwood in 1984. And it's a song that I think most of us really enjoy hearing, and I do. So I'm going to just do the chorus. We don't have, she said 5 minutes, but that's not much time. I'm going to do the chorus, and you all sing with me, okay? I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. Well, if we have time, I'd like to tie together all of our wars with a song written by Johnny Cash in 1974. It's called The Ragged Old Flag, and so you'll hear most of the wars in that ragged old flag. I walked through a county courthouse square. On a park bench, an old man was sitting there. I said, "Your old courthouse is kind of run down." He says, "No, it'll do for our little town." I said, "Your old flagpole has leaned a little bit, and that's a ragged old flag you got hanging on it." He said, "Have a seat," and I sat down. "Is this the first time you've been to our little town?" I said, "I think it is." He says, "Well, I don't like to brag, but we're kind of proud of that ragged old flag. You see, we got a big hole in that flag there when Washington took it across the Delaware, and it got powder burned the night Francis Scott Key sat watching it while writing, 'Oh, say can you see.' It got a rip in New Orleans with Pakenham and Jackson tugging at its seams, and it almost fell at the Alamo beside the Texas flag. But she waved on, though. She got cut with a sword at Chancellorsville, and she got cut again at Shallow Hill. And there was Robert E. Lee and Beauregard and Bragg. The south wind blew hard on that ragged old flag. On Flanders Field in World War I, she got a big hole from a Bertha gun. She turned blood red in World War II. She hung limp and low a time or two. She was in Korea and Vietnam. She went where she was sent by her Uncle Sam. She waved from her ships on the briny foam, and now they've about quit waving her here back at home. In her own good land, she's been abused. She's been burned, dishonored, denied, and refused. And she's getting threadbare, and she's wearing thin. But she's in good shape for the shape she's in. 'Cause she's been through the fire before, and I believe she can take a whole lot more. So we raise her up every morning, and we bring her down slow every night. We don't let her touch the ground, and we fold her up just right. On second thought, I do like to brag, 'cause I'm mighty proud of that ragged old flag.
Well, I'd like to thank you, Gray, for sharing your knowledge of music and history and songs with us on this pre-4th of July Village in Motion. And I hope our audience has enjoyed the images we've been showing and, of course, your music. And sorry I couldn't join you with my singing voice, but you'll thank me for that.
Well, Diane, I appreciate having been asked to do this because 4th of July is really a big occasion for us, and it's something that we should be proud of and celebrate every year. You may recall that John Adams thought that July the 2nd that's when the Constitutional Congress actually approved or declared independence, but it was the signing of the Declaration of Independence that we celebrate. So I hope everyone has a happy 4th of July with your family.